The sky was still red when Jack walked across the burned-out alien battlefield. The smoke had faded, but the heat still clung to the ground like a warning. Cracked metal pieces and scorched alien weapons lay everywhere. The battle had ended days ago, but the dead silence still screamed louder than any war cry. Jack was not a soldier. He was just a scavenger, a human trying to survive in a galaxy that didn't care if he lived or died. He carried a long metal rod, poking through wreckage, hoping to find anything useful: circuit boards, energy cells, maybe a piece of alien tech he could sell. He had seen enough battles to know where to look, but today, something felt different. Something pulled at his gut. That's when he found the pod. It was half buried under a broken wing of a shattered alien cruiser. The pod was egg-shaped, glowing faintly with a soft green hue. A deep crack ran down its side, leaking a sticky blue fluid. Something was alive inside it. Jack leaned closer, wiping the dust away. Inside, something moved. A tiny claw tapped the glass, weak but steady. Then a second one followed. And then he saw it, a pair of glowing golden eyes staring back at him. His breath caught. It wasn't fear. It was something else. Curiosity. Maybe even pity. The creature inside looked fragile, smaller than a cat. Its scales shimmered with strange colors: green, silver, and purple. But it looked weak, trembling. Trying to push open the cracked shell, Jack glanced around. No one else was there. No soldiers, no scavengers, no one to stop him. He took a deep breath and whispered, "All right, little one. Let's see what you are." Carefully, he pried open the pod. The moment the shell split, the creature let out a soft chirp like a cry, but not human, not threatening. It curled into his hand, wet and shaking. Its heart beat fast, faster than anything he had ever felt. He wrapped it in his scarf and tucked it inside his coat. His fingers were shaking now too. Why was he doing this? Why didn't he leave it to die like everyone else would? He didn't know, not yet. Back in the village, people stared as Jack returned. He wasn't welcome here, not really. He lived in a shack at the edge of town, far from the others. Humans were rare in this part of the world, and trust was even rarer. He hid the creature in a box lined with old cloth, feeding it drops of water and bits of dried meat. Days passed. It didn't die. It got stronger, and it watched him, always watched him. Like it understood something no one else did. Jack named it Koro. It just felt right. And soon Koro began to crawl, then climb. It chirped when hungry, rubbed against his arm when he was sad, and it never left his side. Weeks turned into months. Koro grew fast, much faster than any animal Jack had seen. Its eyes turned sharper, its claws stronger. But it never hurt him, not once. He built a small shelter outside his shack just for Koro. But the creature always preferred to sleep near him, like a loyal pup. People started asking questions. What was that noise at night? Why were animals disappearing from the forest? What was Jack hiding? He said nothing. He didn't trust them. They wouldn't understand. One night, an old alien woman from the tribe stopped him in the market. She looked into his eyes and said, "You carry death in your coat." Boy, Jack froze. She leaned closer. "Not for you, maybe, but for us." He walked away without replying, but her words stuck like a thorn in his mind. That night, he sat beside Koro as it slept, its chest rising and falling slowly, its tail curled around his leg. "Are you really dangerous?" he whispered. "Or are they just afraid of what they don't understand?" Koro opened one golden eye, looked at him, and closed it again. Jack didn't know the answer, but he knew one thing: he had found something, or someone, worth protecting. Even if the rest of the world feared it, especially if they feared it, he reached out, stroked Koro's head gently. "No matter what happens, I've got you," he said softly. Outside, the night wind howled through the trees, and deep in the forest, something howled back. Koro was no longer tiny. It had grown faster than anyone could have imagined. What once fit in Jack's hand now towered above him on all fours, with sharp claws and glimmering scales that reflected the sunlight like liquid steel. But even now, Kuro was calm with Jack. Gentle even, it would nuzzle him like a pet, purr when Jack scratched behind its horned ears, and follow his every command with fierce loyalty. To Jack, Kuro was family, but to the village, Kuro was a threat. Whispers spread like fire. There's a monster in the woods. They said, it hunts at night, and it doesn't leave tracks. Livestock began disappearing. Small creatures were found half-eaten, and strange claw marks appeared near the riverbanks. Jack knew it was Kuro. But he also knew one more thing. Kuro had never hurt a villager, not even once. Still, fear does not need truth to grow. Just shadows and silence. One evening, a group of village men came to Jack's hut, led by Garan, a loud and bitter hunter who had always hated Jack's presence. He pointed a rusted blade at Jack's chest and snarled, "Where is it? The thing you're hiding?" Jack stood in the doorway, blocking their view. "There's nothing dangerous here," he said calmly. "That's not what the claw marks say," Garan growled. "Or the missing animals. You brought death here. Human, and we want it gone." Kuro wasn't inside the hut. Jack had told him to hide in the old stone ruins nearby, just in case. Jack didn't want to fight. But he also knew these men were looking for an excuse to start one. Before they could step forward, a sound ripped through the air, a deep growl that froze everyone in place. The ground trembled slightly, and from the edge of the trees, two glowing golden eyes appeared. Kuro stepped into the clearing. The men gasped and took a step back. Even Garan's blade lowered without him noticing. Kuro's body was massive now, like a lion with dragon bones. Its fangs glinted under the moonlight, and its tail slowly swept across the dirt. But the creature didn't attack. It walked calmly toward Jack and stopped beside him, lowering its head as if to say, "I'm here, father." Jack placed a hand on Kuro's thick neck. "He's not your enemy," Jack said, looking at the stunned men. "Unless you make him one." Garan's lips trembled with fear, but his pride was louder than his wisdom. He spat at the ground. "This thing isn't natural. One day, it will turn on you too." Jack didn't answer. Kuro just stared at them. Unblinking, the group left, muttering curses and promises to return with weapons. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He sat by the fire. While Kuro rested near the door, breathing softly, Jack stared at the flames and whispered, "They'll come back, next time with more than just words." Kuro opened one eye, then rose and walked over, resting its huge head in Jack's lap. Jack felt the weight of it, not just physically, but emotionally. This creature had trusted him, bonded with him, and now it was being hunted. "I never wanted a weapon," Jack murmured. "But maybe that's what you are now." The next morning, news spread through the village that the chieftain's daughter, Princess Lyria, was coming to visit the outer regions. Jack didn't care much for royalty, but he knew this could mean trouble. The royal guards might not tolerate Kuro's existence, no matter how loyal the beast was, and he was right. Princess Lyria arrived in the village the following day, surrounded by armored warriors. Her silver hair glowed under the sunlight, and her eyes scanned the villagers like she was reading a book she had already grown bored of. Garan wasted no time. He bowed and told her everything. The egg, the creature, the threat. Lyria raised a brow and asked, "A human raised a predator? That sounds unbelievable." Jack was summoned. He stood in front of her, calm but tense. "I didn't raise a predator," he said. "I raised a life that needed saving." She scoffed. "And now it grows into a monster that prowls in the night? Tell me, does it bite on your command?" Jack didn't reply. Instead, he whistled. From behind the trees, Kuro emerged. The royal guards drew their weapons instantly, but Lyria raised a hand, stopping them. Her eyes widened as Kuro walked forward, each step shaking the earth slightly. The creature stopped beside Jack, towering above even the guards. Its eyes locked with Lyria's, and she felt something strange, not fear, but respect. It wasn't just the size. It was the way Kuro moved, the intelligence in its eyes, and the calm obedience it showed to Jack. Lyria stepped closer. "What is this thing?" Jack looked at her, then at Kuro. He's my family, for the first time. The princess had no words, but she understood one thing. This human had raised something not even the royal blood could control, and that scared her more than she would admit. Princess Lyria had seen many creatures across the galaxy. She had walked through war camps, ruled over beast arenas, and watched monsters fight to the death for sport. But never had she seen anything like this. Koro, it stood tall beside. The human, quiet, still, and watching her without blinking. Its scales shimmered like armor, its claws clicked on the ground like sharpened steel, and its breath steamed into the air like a silent warning. The royal guards surrounded her, tense. Their hands gripped their weapons, but none dared take a step forward. Jack stood calmly next to Koro, as if this was all normal, as if he wasn't. Standing beside a living nightmare, Lyria narrowed her eyes. "Why does it obey you?" Jack replied softly, "Because I didn't chain it. I raised it." She looked at him again, this strange human from the outer lands. Dirty boots, patched coat, but something powerful in his calmness. He had no armor, no soldiers, but somehow he held command over something her entire tribe would fear. She took one step forward. The guards flinched, but she raised her hand to keep them back. Koro growled lowly. Jack whispered, "Easy," and the growl faded. That one moment told her everything. This beast wouldn't listen to anyone but him. Lyria took a deep breath. "You understand what this means, don't you? You've raised a creature no one can stop." Jack looked around at the watching villagers, then back at her. "It's not about control, it's about trust. He trusts me. Can he trust anyone else?" She asked. Jack didn't answer, not because he didn't want to, but because even he wasn't sure. Later that night, the village held a private council. The elders gathered with Lyria under the moonlight in the stone chamber at the village center. Jack was not invited, but he knew they were talking about Kuro and about him inside. Garan stood before the princes, his voice loud and proud. "He's dangerous. He hides behind that thing. That monster will bring death to us all." Another elder added, "The villagers are scared, princess. If it turns on us, we have no way to stop it." Lyria sat quietly, her fingers tapping the stone table. Then she asked, "How long has the creature lived among you?" "Almost a year," one said. "And how many has it killed?" She asked. The room fell silent. "No one." Someone finally whispered. Lyria stood and walked to the edge of the balcony, looking out over the forest where Koro now rested, curled peacefully beside Jack's small hut. The firelight flickered near their shadows. "It obeys the human," she said. "It fights for him. Not against him," Garan spat. "That makes him more dangerous than the beast." The next morning, Lyria decided to see for herself. She ordered her guards to stay behind and walked alone to Jack's home. A risky move, but she didn't become princess by playing safe. Jack saw her coming and stepped outside. "Didn't think you'd come back," he said. "I had questions," she replied, "about you. Not just the creature." Koro stood up when she approached. Jack raised his hand. "Stay," he said. And the beast obeyed instantly. Lyria walked closer. Her eyes locked on the golden ones of the predator. "Does he understand speech?" Jack nodded. "More than most people do." She circled slowly around Koro, studying him like a warrior sizing up a weapon. But what she saw wasn't just muscle or teeth. It was restraint. It was intelligence. She crouched near him, close enough to touch. "You could crush me right now," she whispered to Koro. "But you don't." Koro tilted his head, then let out a soft, curious huff, almost like a chuckle. She looked at Jack again. "You saved him, didn't you?" "From something," Jack nodded. "He was just a tiny thing, half dead. Found him in the wreckage of a ship. Everyone else would have left him. And now," she said, "he's stronger than anything I've seen. He grew because I didn't give up on him," Jack said. "Maybe that's what your tribe fears most. Not the beast, but what a human can do with kindness." Lyria stood slowly, her expression unreadable. "They fear losing control. That's what royalty has always been about. Power, control, order. She turned to leave, but paused. "I'll keep the council off your back for now," she said. "But know this, Jack, if he ever turns on us, I'll be the first to bring him down." Jack looked at her and replied, "Then pray he always has a reason to stay good." As she walked away, Koro nudged Jack gently. Watching the princess disappear into the trees, the fire came without warning. Smoke rose in thick black clouds from the outer fields as terrified villagers ran through the gates screaming. Jack rushed out of his hut with Koro right behind him. The beast's eyes narrowed, nostrils flaring at the scent of burning wood in fear. "The fire beasts!" someone shouted. "They're here! The blood tribe is attacking!" Jack's heart dropped. He had heard of the blood tribe before. Brutal savages from across the northern ridges. They didn't attack for land or reason. They attacked to destroy. Their war beasts, called fire beasts, were known to burn entire forests with one breath. And now they had come here. Flames reached the edge of the village within minutes. The royal guards were already fighting. But it was chaos. Spears flew, screams echoed, and shadows moved like demons in the smoke. Jack saw one of the fire beasts charge through the trees, its body glowing like lava, its mouth spilling fire onto huts and crops alike. The guards were no match. The villagers tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Then came the second beast, bigger, faster, roaring with rage. It struck a warrior mid-run, sending him flying through the air like a doll. The beast's molten skin hissed as it slammed into the village wall, breaking stone like paper. And in the middle of it all, Princess Lyria. She stood with her blade out, slashing one fire beast across the face. Her courage was clear, but it wasn't enough. Second beast charged her, jaws open wide. "Nitrogen monoxide!" Jack yelled, but before he could move, Koro was already gone. With a terrifying roar that shook the trees, Koro leapt through the flames. His body moved like lightning, claws slashing, tail whipping. He slammed into the fire beast just before it reached Lyria, throwing it to the ground in a cloud of fire and dust. The battle had changed. Lyria fell back, stunned. As Koro faced both fire beasts alone, Jack ran to her side, helping her up. She looked at him with wide eyes. You sent him into battle?" "I didn't need to," Jack said. "He chose to go." Koro roared again. His eyes were glowing. His mouth pulled back to reveal rows of razor-sharp teeth. He moved like a storm, slashing one fire beast across the neck and dodging a burst of flames from the second. The heat didn't slow him. He was too fast, too strong. The villagers stopped running. They started watching. Even Garan, who had hidden behind the well, peeked out and froze. His mouth hung open as Koro grabbed the second fire beast by the throat and threw it into a burning tree. It screeched, thrashed, and collapsed, unmoving. The first fire beast tried to flee, but Koro was already on its back, ripping through its hide. And then silence. Both beasts lay broken at Koro's feet, breathing no more. The village was quiet again. Smoke still floated through the air, but the worst was over. Koro stood tall in the middle of the ruined square, blood dripping from his claws, fire reflecting off his scales, and still he looked only at Jack. The crowd slowly gathered, eyes wide, mouths open. They had just witnessed something they would never forget. One by one, heads turned toward Jack. He didn't smile. He didn't say a word. Lyria stepped forward, limping slightly. Her armor was scorched, her sword cracked, but her voice was strong. "You saved my life," she said. Jack looked at her, then at Koro. "He did," she nodded slowly. "And he only obeyed you." The elders arrived, shocked by the destruction and the sight of the two dead fire beasts. They stared at Koro like they were seeing a god. Someone whispered, "He protected us." Another added, "He saved the princess." Garan pushed through the crowd, his face pale. "That thing could have destroyed us all, but it didn't," Lyria snapped. "And you ran while it fought," the crowd murmured. Some even laughed at Garan. For the first time, he had no answer. Lyria turned to Jack. "You may not want power, but you have it now. Jack didn't reply. Koro walked back to his side and lowered his head, calm again. The princess looked around at the destroyed huts and smoldering trees. "We'll rebuild, but we'll do it under new protection." The villagers waited, breath held. Lyria looked directly at Jack. "The tribe needs a guardian, and clearly, we already have one." Jack said nothing, but Koro lifted his head and let out a deep, proud growl that echoed across the valley. From that day, everything changed. The human and his beast were no longer outcasts. They were legends. "She's not like the others," Jack whispered. "She's smart. She sees you." Somewhere deep inside, he knew this wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning. The next morning, the smoke still rose from the ruins, but the village was quiet. Not from fear, but from awe. Everyone had seen it. The fire beasts, the death, the chaos, and then Koro. The beast had not only saved the village, he had saved the princess and the human who raised him. Stood untouched, calm, powerful. Now, Jack had been summoned. A royal guard arrived at dawn. Not with chains, but with a respectful bow. "The council requests your presence," he said, "and the creature is welcome." Jack raised a brow. "Welcome? That's a new one." Koro tilted his head, sensing something different in the air. Jack nodded, and together, man and beast walked through the village streets. People stepped aside to let them pass. No one threw stones. No one shouted insults. Instead, they stared. Some bowed slightly. Some even smiled. Koro walked beside Jack like a silent knight, proud and powerful. His eyes scanned the surroundings, but his steps were calm. When they reached the tribal court, Princess Lyria was already waiting at the grand stone steps. Her armor polished, her hair tied back, she gave Jack a slight nod of command, but of respect. "You look different without flames behind you," Jack said. "And you look more dangerous without speaking," she replied. Inside the council chamber, the elders sat in a circle, stone faces, old eyes. Their robes were clean, but their hands trembled slightly. Jack stood in the center with Koro beside him. The council stared at the beast, but no one spoke against him, not yet. Then the eldest among them, High Elder Varka, cleared his throat. "Human Jack," he said slowly, "you have saved our people. That is a truth we cannot deny." Jack remained quiet. "But you have also brought a creature into our world that none can command but you." Varka continued, "That gives you power beyond title or rank." A younger elder leaned forward. "Some believe you should be given a place in our leadership, perhaps even as protector of the tribe." Garan stood up in the corner of the chamber, his eyes burning. "And some believe he's still just a scavenger with a trained beast. What happens when the beast hungers again? What happens when the human turns against us?" The room tensed. Jack's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Instead, Koro stepped forward, growling softly, just once, deep and low. Garan stepped back without thinking, his legs nearly giving out. Princess Lyria stood now. "Enough. You all saw what happened. The fire beast would have killed every one of us. None of our warriors stood a chance. But this creature fought, not for destruction, but for us, for me." She looked at Jack. "And he only did that because Jack asked him to." Silence followed. Then Varka spoke again. "This is not about fear. This is about balance, Jack. What is it that you want?" Jack blinked. No one had asked him that before. Not in this village, not in this tribe. Not since he crash-landed years ago and became a ghost in someone else's world. He looked around. "I didn't raise Koro to rule. I raised him because he was alone, like me. I don't want your throne. I don't want titles." He looked at Lyria, then at the elders. "But I will protect this place. Whether you welcome me or not, I'll keep it safe." Varka nodded slowly. "Then let it be written, Jack. The human is now the guardian of the flame." Gasps echoed in the chamber. The title had not been used in centuries. It was a role only given to those who defended the tribe with their life. Koro let out a soft huff, as if proud. Garan clenched his fists, but said nothing. The council had spoken. Outside, the villagers waited. When Jack and Koro stepped out, A cheer rose. Not loud, not wild, but real. Children waved. Elders bowed. Warriors nodded with respect. Jack scratched the side of his beard. "Guess we're not ghosts anymore," he whispered to Koro. The beast leaned against him gently, almost like a hug. Later that night, Lyria visited Jack's hut again. She brought bread, fruit, and a bottle of red root wine. "You didn't ask for power," she said. "That's why they gave it to you." Jack poured 2 cups. "I just wanted to survive." "You did more than that," she replied. "You gave us something we forgot. Hope." She looked at Koro, curled beside the fire, sleeping peacefully. "He's beautiful in a terrifying way," she whispered. Jack smiled. "Aren't we all?" That night, the stars felt closer, but the peace wouldn't last long, because in the mountains far beyond, something else had seen the fire beasts fall. Something older, something darker, and it was coming. Night fell quietly, but something in the air felt wrong. Jack sat outside his hut with Koro lying beside him. The fire crackled gently, and stars blinked above like quiet witnesses, but the wind carried whispers. Uneasy, sharp, too quiet for most ears, but not for Koro, the beast's. Ears twitched. Jack noticed and sat up straighter. "What is it, boy?" he asked. Koro stood, muscles tense, head turning slowly toward the dark path leading to the village center. Suddenly, snap, a twig broke near the trees. Then, silence, and then chaos. Arrows flew from the shadows. One struck the hut wall, another pierced the fire pit. Jack dove to the side as Koro roared, shaking the earth. 3 masked figures burst from the trees, armed with blades and crossbows. They didn't wear Blood Tribe armor. They were from the village. Koro lunged forward, claws slamming one attacker to the ground with a single blow. Jack grabbed a broken spear from the corner and swung at another, knocking him back. But the third man had a knife, and he rushed toward Jack from behind. Koro saw him first. The beast moved like lightning, jaws snapping, dragging the man backward before he could strike. Jack's heart pounded as he kicked the last one away. "Why are they attacking us?" he shouted. The attackers didn't speak. They only ran when Koro growled again, disappearing into the woods like rats. When it was over, Jack stood in the smoke and silence, breathing hard, blood trickling from a cut on his arm. Koro stood close, guarding him. Jack placed a shaky hand on his neck. "You saved me again," he whispered, but his eyes were on the trail the attackers had used to flee. One thing was clear: this wasn't a robbery. It was an assassination, and it came from inside the tribe. By morning, the village was buzzing. Jack told Princess Lyria everything. She stood quietly, arms crossed, staring at the arrows he placed on her table. "These aren't foreign," she said. "These are ours." Jack nodded. "Someone inside the council wants me gone." Lyria's eyes burned. "After what you and Koro did." "Someone's still afraid." "They don't fear me," Jack replied. "They fear what I've proven, that their power means nothing if someone without blood or title earns loyalty through love." She nodded slowly. "Then we root them out." That night, Jack didn't sleep. He watched the stars again. Koro beside him, calm but alert. Every sound felt louder, every shadow deeper. He thought about when he first found the egg, back in the wreckage. That tiny fragile thing had no teeth, no strength, just soft cries and golden eyes. And now Koro was a monster the world bowed to. But the most powerful thing about him wasn't his strength, it was his heart. Because no matter what, Koro always protected him. But would that loyalty hold if Jack ever became the real threat? That thought stayed in Jack's mind longer than he expected. 2 days passed. Lyria secretly investigated the council. One elder suddenly fell ill and vanished from his home. Another went silent during meetings. Then word came that Garan had left the village in the night. No warning, no note. Jack and Koro walked through the empty house together. It had been cleaned out. Garan was gone. And that meant one thing: he was planning something bigger. They returned to the hut only to find a small figure waiting at the door. A child, she was shaking, holding something wrapped in cloth. "My papa told me to give this to you before he ran," she said. Jack took the bundle and opened it slowly. Inside was a poisoned blade and a message. "The beast may protect you, but even monsters bleed." Jack closed the note with a grim look. "He wants to kill Koro." Koro growled softly, leaning close to the note, sniffing the cloth. His eyes burned brighter, now not with rage, but awareness. He understood, and that's when it happened. That night, Jack had a dream. In it, he stood alone in the burning forest, calling for Koro. But the beast did not come. Instead, a voice echoed deep, cold, ancient. "Even loyalty has limits." He woke up sweating. Koro was gone. Panicked, he grabbed his coat and ran outside. "Koro! Koro!" He shouted into the dark. No reply then. From deep in the forest he heard it a roar. Not angry, but hurting. Jack ran toward the sound without thinking, stumbling through branches, thorns cutting his arms. Until he found him, Koro stood in a clearing, breathing hard, bleeding from his side. Garan and 3 others surrounded him, armed with metal spears tipped with something glowing red. "Koro!" Jack yelled. Garan turned, surprised. "He came alone?" He laughed. "Good, now die with him." The men charged, but Koro, wounded and limping, still roared and slashed. Jack threw himself forward, grabbing one spear and breaking it with sheer force. "You want him?" he screamed. "You'll have to kill me too." That's when Koro rose again, despite the wound, despite the pain, for him, for Jack. With a mighty roar, the beast struck back, knocking 2 attackers aside. Garan tried to run, but Koro's tail wrapped around his leg and slammed him into a tree. Silence returned. Jack dropped to his knees beside Koro, holding his head. "You came back," he whispered. "You always come back." And Koro, though bleeding, leaned into him gently, eyes soft, breath warm. Loyalty had been tested, and it had passed. The sun rose over the village like it hadn't in years, bright, soft, peaceful. But Jack stood at the edge of the forest, his hand gently resting on Koro's wounded side. The beast had survived, but barely. His body was covered in deep gashes. His movements slow, yet his golden eyes still held fire. The tribe had gathered in the center square. Princess Lyria stood at the front, her armor shining in the morning light. Around her, the remaining council members waited, humbled, silent. They had heard everything. What Garan tried to do, how Jack had risked his life to save Koro, how the beast, injured and bleeding, had fought to protect its only family. Lyria stepped forward as Jack entered the square, Koro limping beside him. The crowd opened without resistance, not a single voice raised in doubt. Jack stopped in front of the council. No one spoke. Then Lyria took a deep breath and slowly knelt before him. The people gasped. The princess kneeling? "I was raised to believe that bloodlines define power," she said, loud enough for all to hear. "But this man, this human, and this beast, they changed everything." She looked up at Jack. "You raised something everyone feared, not with chains or cruelty, but with love and loyalty." Jack said nothing. She smiled faintly. "You don't want the crown, and that's exactly why you deserve something greater. Not a throne, but respect." Then, one by one, the council members followed, kneeling behind her, the warriors, the elders, even the farmers, all bowed their heads, not to a king, not to a soldier, but to a guardian. Jack looked around, confused. "I'm just a man who found an egg in a shipwreck," he whispered. Lyria rose slowly. "That may be true, but that egg became a legend. Because of you." Koro let out a soft rumble, lowering his massive body to lie beside Jack's feet. He was tired, but proud, and still watching. Always watching. Later that day, a feast was held, not one of royalty, but of unity. Children brought flowers to lay near Koro, who now rested in the middle of the village with bandages on his legs. Some dared to touch his tail and ran off laughing when it twitched playfully. Jack sat under a tree, finally relaxing. Princess Lyria joined him. handing him a bowl of sweet roots and dried meat. "You did more than protect us," she said softly. "You reminded us that greatness doesn't come from titles, but from choices." Jack shrugged. "I just didn't want to let him die alone." Lyria looked at him. "Would you stay here? As part of the tribe? Not as a leader, but as something stronger." He smiled slightly. "I'll stay, as long as Coral wants to." She leaned back against the tree and whispered, "Then we're safe." But as the celebration continued, far beyond the valley, deep in the mountains, something stirred. A dark ship hovered above the broken lands once ruled by the Blood Tribe. Inside, creatures with metallic armor watched old recordings of a beast killing their firebreasts. Their eyes narrowed, a voice growled, "The creature lives. And he belongs to a human?" "Yes," another hissed, "and the tribes bow to him now. Then he is a threat to all order." They looked at each other and nodded. Back in the village, Jack stood beside Koro as the stars returned. He looked up at the sky, sensing something coming, something distant, but not yet near. Koro tilted his head as if sensing it too. "Whatever comes," Jack whispered, "we'll face it together." Koro rumbled in agreement and lay his head beside Jack's feet, eyes slowly closing, trusting. At the edge of the village, Princess Lyria stood watching them, arms folded. Her heart full. She had once been proud, once feared. Now she had seen something stronger than fear, and it made her bow, not to the beast, not even to the man, but to the bond they shared, the kind of bond that could change a world and protect it forever.